Hi there. Today's video is about the BS38 carburetors on my XS650. This particular section of my little range of videos is about assembling the throttle shafts and putting some new throttle shaft seals in. If the throttle shaft seals are worn or the bushes are worn, then it will make it very difficult to get a good tick over. Now, just a quick mention here, the seals for the BS38 and I think also the BS34s are the same. This is a Suzuki part. The number is 13651-51010. I'll put a note up on the end of the video. These are exactly the same part as the original XS650 Mikuni type part. In fact, Suzuki and Kawasaki's both use the Mikuni carbs, and it's an identical part. So the first thing we need to do, this is the most important thing of all when you're putting your throttle shaft back in with new seals, is you need to make sure that you eliminate all the side play in the shaft, the actual lash, if you like, whatever. So let's first of all make sure that you've got this shaft really clean, because sometimes the old seals leave a residue, and that will break up the new seals as you're putting them on. So what I'm going to do first of all is put the plastic piece on first, as following that, put that through, and then on the other side I'm going to put the special shim washer, goes on there, bears just directly on the carb body there. And then I'm going to put on the throttle cable lever. Let's get this right way around. It's like that. There we go. And then I'm going to put on a nut. Tighten that up. I might put on another washer actually. And what I'm going to do is tighten that up. It doesn't have to be really tight. And now we can see on this particular carb, got a lot of play there. It's pointless trying to tune this carb or sink it and get the tick over right, or the pilot mixture, the idle mixture, when you've got that kind of gap. Even with new seals in there, eventually that's going to start leaking. We need to eliminate that. It needs to have a reasonable tolerance, but that's far too much. So what you want to do is get your feeler gauge out and find out what that gap is there. And I've already done this exercise and I've found out what it is, and it comes to 0.711 millimeters, which is 28 thou. So in old money it's 28 thou, and 0.711 millimeters, 0.7 mil. So I'm going to allow a tolerance of 5 thou, 5/1000ths of an inch, which is 0.127 millimeters. And that's this here, look, it's quite a thin amount of tolerance, but that's the tolerance I'm going to allow, so that there's sufficient gap there so that it doesn't bind. You don't want it binding obviously, but you don't want any gap so it's too loose. So if you get a pen, let's work this out. So we've got 28 thou, I want 5 thou remaining gap there, there's a tolerance. So you take 5 away from 28, that leaves 23. 23 thou. So we need a 23 thou thick washer to put on the shaft to take up that tolerance there. And that would work out at 0.584 of a millimetre. It's nearer 0.6 of a millimetre than 0.5. So we're likely to probably find a 0.5 millimetre, half a millimetre washer, shim washer. So what you need to do is you need to go to some company on eBay. Let me just have a quick look here. I think it's Screws or something or other. Screws City. Now, I'll give a link to that at the end of the video somewhere, but basically what I'm looking to buy there is some 0.5 mm thick shims washers that are M8 internal diameter. So I'm going to order some 0.5 mm and some 0.01 millimeters, so I can make up 0.6 mm washer to just take up that gap on the shaft there. So once I've ordered that up, and we can fit this, put this together and put the seals in, and we'll get to that stage next. Right then, so we're ready for the final fitting of the throttle shaft, hopefully the final fitting. I've measured all the components, and they now should be exactly right to reduce the sideways play in the throttle shaft. This is my shim and it's 0.65. So let's give this a try. So I'm going to put a bit of grease on here actually, just to make it a little bit easier to get the shaft through while we're doing this. So the first thing that goes on is the shim, and that goes, it's a packing piece basically to take up the lash on the shaft. So you put that on first, then you put on the plastic washer like that. It's the plastic washer that's worn down that's created the float in the actual shaft, the throttle shaft itself. What I could do is, if that washer didn't fit very well and I had a slightly thicker washer, I could also rub this down. This plastic piece is a sacrificial piece. It does wear, and you can get new ones that are the correct size. Not sure what this one is. This one measures 4.9, so it probably was a 5 mm thickness, I suspect. But this would be the easiest part to rub down, wouldn't it? I mean, so just use a bit of wet and dry, and again, you can rub that down until you get the tolerance you need. So let's put this on next. We'll put the shaft in. Nice and tight, which is good, so the bushes are still in good condition. Lovely jubbly. Now, one thing we do need to make sure of when we do actually do a final assembly of this and put the new seals in, we want to make sure that the holes are up the right way on the shaft, otherwise we won't be able to screw in our butterfly valve, will we? So I've already got it upside down once before now, but at the moment we don't worry about that. So let's put the washer on, slotted washer, which goes up next to the car body like that, and that's nice and smooth. I mean, if that was a bit rough or any burrs on it, then again you can use the wet and dry and rub that down so it's nice and smooth, so that when it bears on the carburetor body, there's no roughness, there's no drag or friction here. You want this absolutely smooth. Right, next thing on is this. Let's get this the right way around, might as well. And that's up in that position, that goes over like that. Must be like that. God, and everything works fine until you put the bloody camera on. There's not always a way. There we go, lovely jubbly. Spring washer and nut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this up, not to a full tightness, but sufficient so that it takes up any slack. It's going to take me half an hour now to get the nut on, you watch. Mamma mia. There we go. All right. Right, that's tight enough, and we've certainly got some slack there. There's a slight bit of play there, and let's measure that. What we're aiming for on these is 0.1 mm, which is 5 thou. 5 thou 0.1 is what I'm aiming for. Hopefully that's what we should have here. There we go. Yeah, look at that. It's just starting to bind at 0.5. 0.005. 5 thou. Excellent. and it's really nice and smooth. Look at that, it's virtually dropping exactly how you want it, with just that slight bit of play there, so you don't get any binding. First thing is rubber seals with the flange facing outwards. I'm going to put a bit of grease on that. So it stays in now. Actually, I'm going to put it on the shaft first, that's going to be easiest, isn't it? Doesn't matter really what kind of grease you use, which is just corrosion block grease. You can use silicone grease or white grease or whatever. Let's face it, a lot of people are going to be fussy about the type of grease they use. I'm sure someone's going to mention that, but this is going to be dismantled in 6 months' time to be cleaned again because of the additives that you get in fuel. It's going to bung up all the jets, and it's left over winter every year unused, so it's going to be stripped down again in 6 months' time. So I'm not too bothered. It's just as long as it's nice and smooth there with no friction. Right, next oil seal. Air seal even, not oil seal, is it? Air seal, lovely jubbly. Then we have the slotted washer. Nice. And now we need a spring. So let's fit this the right way round, make sure that the holes are up right for the screws to go in with a butterfly valve. That points inwards and holds the spring, and it should be that way around like that, I think. No, like that. That's it. Yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the spring on there, like that, so that little hook there hooks over the lever there. Put it over there, shaft. Here we go. And then before I push it all the way in, I'm going to pull the other little ring round and put it on that spigot. There it is on the spigot. And now that's pre-tension. The spring's pre-tensioned is perfect. Get our spring washer on. And lastly the nut. Come on, give me a break. Just going to make sure that is perfect. Still not too tight, yeah. Lovely and smooth. Nice strong spring actually as well. It's another thing that's important. If the springs are weakened, then you might need to either replace the spring with a new spring, or you can alternatively add an extra spring to the throttle shaft somewhere on one of the carbs, just to give it that extra return springiness. That's quite nice and sharp. That's excellent. Now, just check play again. Make sure that's sufficient. Yep, nice and free, and that's fairly tight in there. Excellent. So I'm really pleased with that. That's excellent. So now next step is to fit the butterfly valve, and then obviously before we tighten the screws up, we leave them just a little bit loose, and then we centre the butterfly valve that and letting it return until it seats itself in the right position, and then you keep your tension on the butterfly once you've done that, and put the screws in and tighten them fully, and we'll do that in the next stage. But anyway, that was the thing that I wanted to tackle in this particular video, was putting in some new seals on the shaft, throttle shaft, and just eliminating any sideways play there as well. I'm really looking forward to an excellent tick over on these. So that's that part done.